Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another IMCO with myself, Jonathan Chan, and I'm so glad that you can join me for lunch today, live on Facebook Live, to talk about what topped the news this past week, and for me to offer you a Christian opinion, my Christian opinion. So just to remind you that this is my own Christian opinion, so take it as it is, and if you have any questions, comments, feedback, you can always send me a message through my website, which I'll be posting at the end of this IMCO for you to chime in and provide your opinion as well so that we could have a dialogue, because I would love to hear from you. Or, better yet, if you're on Facebook, just post your comments in the bottom of this post, and I'll respond through that as well. It's a lot faster, a lot quicker, and I'm sure it will not end up in my spam mail because I could see it. So, what topped the news this past week? Well, apparently there were huge parties, large crowds gathered over at English Bay over the weekend, where the police had to call in their helicopter right here to disperse the crowds. What's even worse is that as they were dispersing the crowds started to throw beer bottles at the police officers and at the helicopter. Yeah, brilliant. You're throwing a beer bottle at a helicopter that is approximately 80 to 100 yards up. Why would you do that? And what goes up must come down, right? So, and what's worse is that it's a beer bottle, so it's gonna, never mind. So you could tell that from my point of view, my perspective, they're just being stupid. But that's what occurred this past week. And that's what topped the news over the weekend, especially. However, that's not what really got me going. That's not what really stuck out. What really stuck out was the big podcast story. And if you don't know what that is, I included the link below. It's through the News 1130 website. You could find it. It's posted as the big podcast story. And it's interesting, the dialogue from there, because what was the topic was about the failure of the health authorities' ability to communicate to the public, i.e. to you and I. So for us in BC, they would be criticizing Dr. Bonnie Henry and the Honorable Adrian Dix, the health minister, on how their communication has been quite poor and not up to snuff to provide good communication to us. Their next criticism would be in Alberta and also in Ontario. So they were criticizing them, especially, and also Theresa Tam, Dr. Theresa Tam, the federal side of things, when she makes the announcements. They were saying that how their communication has been poor. And what do they mean by that? They really were trying to say was that in light of what's going on in the world with the vaccinations now coming up to speed and keeping in pace with the reopenings of Europe, and especially in England, and also in the States especially. And then there's this sense of optimism. How come our health authorities and our politicians here in Canada are not showing any optimism? In fact, I believe I can't remember his name. Oh, wait, sorry. I think I have it here. Who was it? Oh, yes. In fact, the one who was interviewing, Jordan Heath Rawling, he said that instead of an attitude of optimism and hopefulness, our health authorities who make these announcements, including Dr. Bonnie Henry and Dr. Theresa Tam, how come a lot of their messaging sounds so dour? In other words, there's like hopelessness, as if there's no end, like light to the end of the tunnel. And one of the quotes that really struck me was this one. And I'll read it to you. And it's already copied in the bottom of this thread, but I'll just read it to you just to kick off our discussion today. He said this, quote, "Why can't politicians and doctors give us hope, or at least a few carrots mixed in with the constant sticks? Do they not trust us with optimism? Worry we'll start breaking the rules early? Or is treating Canadians like obedient robots doing more harm than good?" End quote, by Jordan Heath Rawling. What really got me going on this one, and what really stuck out for me personally, and that's worth talking about today at the IMCO, is the question of, do they not trust us with optimism? Do they, meaning the government and the health authorities, do they not trust us, human beings, with optimism? And it was almost like, and he also alluded to, he carried on with this quote saying how these health authorities and the politicians feel like they have to, their role is to save us from ourselves. And so therefore they need to not provide us with this much needed information, because they've been heavily criticized for not, expounding enough information. And also to just, this messaging is just so dour. Like, why are they not trusting us with this sense of optimism? How come England, for example, Boris Johnson, could say it better with the optimism and hopefulness? How come President Joe Biden can present optimism and hopefulness? And yet we as Canadians, surrounded by these news throughout the internet, how come our messaging from our own politicians and health authorities keep on saying, "Oh no, this is going to be a horrible summer. This is going to be another one of those summers. This is going to be there's not going to be no gatherings," and right? There's not much of a hopefulness or optimism, and it's not really reflecting reality per se either. That's what Jordan Heath Rawling is saying, that the communication from them is poor. It's just horrible, they said. Okay. So I'm not going to talk about the communication aspect. I'm going to talk about this question. Do they not trust us with optimism? Well, considering the activities that were done by these doofuses over here, I could see why our health authorities and our governments cannot trust us or entrust us with optimism. Look at what happened here. I remember there was a time, I'm sure you remember, for those listeners out there who are in British Columbia, remember there was a time, not too long ago, that Dr. Bonnie Henry actually lowered the COVID restrictions briefly. But then there were some conditions to it, right? However, because she opened the proverbial door a crack, well, it seems like a lot of people just barged right through and opened it further, forced it wide open, meaning instead of just following the COVID protocols, even though in light of the lower restrictions, there were some conditions, they completely ignored those and just opened the door wide open and abused it. So I could see why that Dr. Bonnie Henry and the health authorities can't really trust us with this optimism. We entrust us folks with optimism because there was many cases before, historically, not too long ago, that revealed to them that we cannot be trusted with optimism. That our actions didn't show that we can be entrusted with this optimism. Case in point, these guys right here. The partygoers who just ignored the police, ignored COVID protocols, ignored the gathering protocols, and instead they started throwing beer bottles at them. Now, does that encourage any trust? Does that help the health authority to entrust us with optimism? Heck no, right? So let's talk about this whole idea of trust. How should a Christian see trust? How do we define trust? And how do we become trustworthy? And that's what we're going to go into today in our IMCO. So here are my takeaways on trust. A little bit brief, but I think it's still poignant. Number one, a Christian opinion towards trust is this. Number one, trust is earned. I don't think you need to be a Christian to believe this or to agree with it. I think everyone agrees with this, that trust is earned. In other words, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what ethnic background you are, it doesn't matter what race, gender, whatever. Trust is earned. It's not an entitlement. People do not trust each other until they earn a rapport and actually show that they can be trusted. And so number one is that trust is earned. Now, is that Christian? I'll get back to you on that one soon. But the first thing is that trust is earned. Number two, we also know, and I'm sure you agree, that trust can be compromised from behavior, from wrongdoing, like those type of things, or even cheating or lying or stealing. Those type of actions do compromise trust, don't you think? Case in point, the police violence down in the States. I don't think much of the public can actually trust the police down there lately. The George Floyd case in Minnesota, was it Minnesota? I can't remember actually all of a sudden. If you think about it, police violence, corruption, when the police commit corruption, violence, sexual harassment, assault, abuse, do you trust them now? Or even case in point for us Canadians, we hear about our military generals and colonels being investigated for sexual abuse. Now, do you trust them now? So trust, I think both you and I agree that trust can be compromised as well. So trust is earned, but also trust can be compromised. I also want to bring to attention about reconciliation. We hear a lot in Canada about the truth and reconciliation. Well, there can be no reconciliation if both parties cannot trust each other. And both parties need to earn each other's trust in order to be reconciled, right? This is a basic rule of thumb. It's not even a Christian thing. You could read it in many books, business books, and even in the book that I'm currently leading on called Difficult Conversations. It's something, trust has a lot to do with both parties. Oh, my apologies. Reconciliation has to do with both parties being able to earn each other's trust. Now, the conclusion. How about Christians? Is this a Christian way of thinking about it? I think it is. Number one, trust is earned. Now, is that Christian? Yes, it is. In my opinion, yes, it is. Why? Because God earned our trust. How did he do that? Well, way back when he made a promise to humanity and also to this dude named Abraham, there was this thing called a covenant, that promise. Now, this is a good way to prove that you're trustworthy is to keep your promises. And so, can God be trusted? Did he earn our trust? Did he keep his promises? Yes, he did. Through Jesus Christ. He sent his son to fulfill those promises. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you could send me an email through my contact or just post on my thread below this recording. But God indeed earned our trust. He earned it, and hence that's why he is trustworthy. Because what he did through Jesus Christ. So, number one, trust is earned. Yes, it's a Christian concept because God did it. God earned our trust. And case in point, back in a story of Job, it's interesting. God trusted that Job would remain faithful to him regardless of what happened to him. And so, for those who are not familiar with Job, just go ahead and read that book in the Bible. And so God actually saw, God God placed his trust in Job because he saw Job trustworthy. Okay, so let's move on. So trust is earned. Why is a Christian? It's because God earned our trust. And which is interesting because it goes into point number B. How do Christians earn trust, and how do we become trustworthy? Well, we had to do the same thing as what God did. It's the willingness to sacrifice for the good of humanity, for the good of people, for out of the love for our neighbors. It's the ability to put others people's interests above our own, and not be this selfish, insular human being that and submit to our selfish desires, like without any consideration of others. So, in order to earn earn people's trust on us, in order to be trustworthy, we have to follow what Jesus did, and that is to be willing to sacrifice for others. And hence, can we earn the trust of others? Yes, it is through our sacrificial love for others, and that's how we earn how we become trustworthy. Now, lastly, it's a little bit of a theological turn, and since this is a Christian opinion, and since our church is right now going through Romans, it's the whole idea about trustworthy, faithfulness, and righteousness. In my opinion, they're all the same. Because trustworthiness is about faithfulness, and faithfulness is about righteousness. Now, why do I say that? Well, remember again, back in in Abraham was declared what? Righteous because of his faithfulness, and hence that's why he was declared righteous. So it was his faithfulness, but also it's because he was trustworthy. He obeyed. He was faithful to God, and that's why he was trustworthy. That God was able to entrust him with all those promises. And that goes with God as well. He is righteous because he was faithful to his promise, and therefore he was declared trustworthy. I know this is very theological. All of a sudden, I went went through that, but again, I'm just saying that if trust is earned, and in order to be trustworthy, we have to do exactly the same thing as what Jesus has done, and that is to actually love others sacrificially. That's how we earn other people's trust. Now, to back up on these folks right here, that's not acting sacrificially. That's not acting out of a love for others. No, that's basically selfish. And did they earn the other people's trust? Heck no. Can we trust them with anything else? Heck no. So trust is indeed earned, right? But then for a Christian, how do we earn that trust? Is to follow Jesus, is to love sacrificially for our neighbors, for humanity in general. And that's how we earn trust from others. That's how we become trustworthy. That's how the health authorities can actually entrust us with optimism. All right. That's it from me. I was rambling on in that theological spin of Romans. My apologies. It's because Romans is really just really in my head right now because we're preparing for sermons and such. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns or opinions, please email me at companydisciples.com. But till next time, have a blessed week.